Similarities Have Many Differences Within by Kayla Stevenson. In the text, The Other Wes Moore, One Name, Two Fates. Moore shares two stories with important similar events. The Other Wes Moore, One Name, Two Fates was published and released in 2010, producing the opportunity to teach and inspire young, poverty-stricken, or hood-bound people that their decisions and the people around them will determine how their lives will end up at the end. The book provides many similar circumstances between Moore and Wes that cause the reader to wonder how their lives went in two different directions. An important similar aspect in both of their lives is that they grew up without a father. This detail made a large impact on how they grew up, considering they did not have a strong father figure. The similar life challenges that they faced brought the aspect of their lives closer together, but within the similar events, there were also small unalike details. Even though they grew up with similar circumstances in the same city, their lives changed drastically once they had complete control. Ultimately, The Other Wes Moore, One Name, Two Fates teaches that even if two people grow up in the same situation and face the same hardships, their lives won't necessarily be the same in the end. Even if your faith has disappeared, you still have a chance to be successful no matter where you came from or dealt with. After doing all of this research about Wes, Moore came to an eye-opening realization. Moore writes, "The chilling truth is that Wes's story could have been mine. The tragedy is that my story could have been his." Upon finishing his research, he realized he could have easily been in Wes's shoes if his act wasn't cleaned up, and Wes could have simply been in his if he just had some help along the way. Their stories started out so much alike that they both could have ended up in jail robbing the same store, or they both could have been in the same rank in the military. This is the aspect of Moore's book that should open eyes, teaching people that no matter where you start, you ultimately choose your ending. The similarities of Moore's and Wes's lives started to fade away once they had become older and they started to make their own decisions. I think what made their lives become different were the privileges that Moore was given. Their situations had always been the same until Moore's mom sent him to military school. Military school changed Moore's life, while Wes was left in the streets of Baltimore where he continued to deal drugs. Some of their minor similarities included the city they grew up in, the kind of people they hung around with, and most importantly, they both grew up without a father. The absence of a real father figure in their lives didn't make the same impact on them as individuals. They both had emotional issues, having to deal with no father, but they mourned the loss differently. In the story, Moore writes, "Your father wasn't there because he couldn't be. My father wasn't there because he chose not to be. We're going to mourn their absence in different ways." Moore has written Wes's reply to when he asked if Wes thought about how different things would be if his father was there. Wes physically expressed that he didn't care about his father's absence at all because it was his father's choice not to be there. Later on in the text, Moore writes more about how Wes really felt about how his father acted. I agree with the statement that Wes made in their meeting, because Wes could have despised his father for leaving him, but Moore could not be angry at his father for leaving. Moore's father left with no choice. It was his time to go, and death had made a different impact than a deadbeat father would. I think that if Wes's father died, then their similar circumstances would be more alike in an emotional level. Along with losing their father, they both had memories of the last time they saw him. Moore was young, only 3 years old, the last time seeing his father. His father had died tragically after being misdiagnosed by the hospital he visited only 6 hours before his death. He was stereotyped as a man off the street, so received no beneficial help. The hospital could truly be seen as the reason for his death. On the other hand, Wes chose that he wasn't going to see his father again. He was about 14 when he last saw him and didn't want to feel the pain of seeing a man who didn't care one bit about him. In the story, Moore writes, "But when Wes and Tony entered his aunt's house, Wes's father was the first person they saw. He slept alone on the couch in the living room, oblivious to the blaring basketball game on the television, or the fact that his son had just walked in the house. Tony looked at Wes and said, 'You see your pops over there?' Wes nodded, but then stood there silent, as if grasping for an emotion that was just out of reach. He had not seen his father in years and didn't know what he would say to him, or if he cared to say anything at all. At first, Wes considered leaving the house, just heading to the roller skating rink, but eventually he thought better of it. This was his father. He should at least say hello. Wes slowly walked up to the couch. His father was motionless. Wes put his hand under his father's nose, testing to see if he was even alive. After feeling the air coming in and out of his father's nostrils, Wes started poking his father in the side with his middle finger. The first few nudges didn't wake him, so finally he just pushed at his father's shoulder. He pushed so hard the man's entire body rolled a little, but he stayed asleep. Finally, after some more jostling, his father's eyes cracked open. He saw Wes standing over him, still squinting. He looked his son in the eyes. "Who are you?" Through great description, Moore helps you relive the moment when Wes decided to never see his father again. Moore expresses that Wes actually did care to talk to his father. He may have considered not saying anything to him, but in the end, he went through all of the trouble of waking him. He took time to wake him without getting frustrated, showing him determination for interaction. I think he went through the trouble because he cared, and I think he honestly wanted to see if his father cared too, even after all that time being away. Undoubtedly, the largest similarity between Wes and Moore is their name. Both are named Wes Moore, which is what really brings them together, but also with this similarity brings the largest difference between them. The difference is their middle names. We are unaware of Wes's middle name, but Moore makes it clear that his middle name is Watande. To tell the background of his middle name, Moore writes, "My father loved the sound and meaning of Watande, a Shona word that means revenge will not be sought, a concept that aligned with his gentle spirit. Overall, what really sets the two men apart are their morals, and Moore's morals were built by his name. Throughout his life, he didn't act with violence. When in any situation where Wes was targeted, he resolved the issue with violence, causing him real issues. Later into his life, Moore realized one of the most important things he could ever live by. Moore writes, Ubuntu was right, and so was my father. Watande, my middle name, all at once made perfect sense. It can be argued, but I believe that Moore's father saved his life by teaching him Watande. The thought of staying away from violence and treating people the right way had separated Moore from Wes in the ultimate way. In the other Wes Moore, One Name, Two Fates, Moore presents something that Wes had said in their meeting. Moore writes, "From everything you told me, both of us did something pretty wrong stuff when we were younger, and both of us had second chances. But if the situation or the context where you make the decisions don't change, then second chances don't mean too much, huh?" When they had discussed their similar lives, Wes had realized that they both had second chances, but Moore had taken full advantage of it, and Wes had thrown it away. Wes had gotten his life together by going to the Job Corps. After finishing and succeeding in the program, the pain of reality had hit him in the face. He fell right back into his past habits. I think that Wes was able to fall into the slumps that he had gotten out of because of all the stress and lack of support. In the book, Moore writes, "But he'd never figure this. Maybe it was because he never thought long-term about his life at all. Early losses condition you to believe that short-term plans are always smarter." Now Wes's mind wandered to the long-term for the first time. Finally, he could see this future. It could be suggested that one of the early losses that he faced was his father, causing him to lose his trust in people and life actually going as planned. Wes had felt this little piece of hope once he had started the Job Corps and lost it when he got back home to Baltimore. The other Wes Moore, One Name, Two Fates, supplies many similarities between the two boys, but what similarity really made an impact was that neither had a father. The father figure aspect in a growing childhood is where young boys look up to for answers and motivation. Neither boys had this motivation, but for different reasons. This similarity really gets different when you think about the emotional impact that the lack of a father figure had on their lives. Neither had a father, but one died, and the other just didn't want to be a part of his son's life. As said previously, the boys would mourn the loss of their fathers differently, so I think that throughout life, Wes kept the grudge of his father leaving him. This really impacted his thoughts and the way he grew up. Contrasting Wes, Moore grew up missing his father with no need of a grudge. Considering that they both grew up without a father, around, you would think that they'd maybe end up with the same lives. But what really matters is faith and determination. Their past didn't really affect what their future would look like. Both boys grew up without a father in the same city and both around drugs. But in the end, one ended up in prison and the other as a well-known veteran.